generation who's going to take his presence to the world. I declare you that there's a sound rising in the generation of people. We will not be silenced. We will not be disturbed. We will not be broken, but we're going to move forward in the power of God. We're going to move forward in the glory of God. So all of creation knows that the kingdom is here and it's not going anywhere. Somebody give God a shout of praise. Lord, we praise you. Lord, we praise you. Come on, somebody give him praise one more time.
You are the Lord God Almighty. You're perfect in everything you do. The angels declare you are holy, and no one else compares to you. We stand in awe of your glory. There is no other God like you, and here in your presence we offer you.
This is what we're gonna do. Let creation, every nation, generation, give the praises. Let the people, all the children, lift their voices, give the praises. Say you are the Lord, yeah.
You are the Lord God Almighty. You're perfect in everything you do.
The angels declare you are holy,
You are holy.
and there is no other one.
Else compares to you.
And we stand,
Stand in awe of your glory.
there is no other God,
There is no
no.
other God like you.
And right here in your presence, Lord,
Presence we offer.
where we were created for. Let creation, every nation, generation, give the praises. Let the people, all the children, lift their voices, give the praises. Let creation, every nation, generation, give the praises. Let the people, all the children, lift their voices, give the praises. Come
Good evening. You're here tonight. The show is called Pastor Femi Live, and we have a very interesting show tonight. And what I would recommend, if you could get a pen and paper, because I think the topic tonight you're going to really enjoy, and I absolutely believe you're going to really reflect on this topic. And before we bring Pastor Femi on, I want to ask you a question. Do you believe that Jesus resides in you? So hold that thought once more. Do you really believe that Jesus Christ resides in you? Not outside of you, not somewhere in the sky, but in you. So, without further ado, we bring on Pastor Femi. Welcome, Pastor Femi.
Good to be here, Greg. Glory be to the name of the Lord.
Yeah, this question really fascinates me, Pastor Femi, because when I really, like you mentioned yesterday during yesterday's program, you used the word to meditate on the word. When I meditated on the word in the question, do I really believe that Jesus resides in me? The deeper and more profound the question was. Pastor Femi, why now, as sons and daughters of God, of Jesus Christ, that we really have to understand this truth?
We need to know who we are, and we need to know what is it that has been done for us, and the effect of what has been done for us. We need to know that the moment we believe in Jesus Christ, something supernatural took place and changed everything, even though we may not feel it, even though nothing may appear to change in us, in our minds, in our bodies, in our thinking, and in our environment. Because that is the way of the people of the Spirit. The Lord Jesus Christ was speaking in the book of John chapter 3. And he said, those who are born of the Spirit, they are like the wind. We don't know where they are coming from. We don't know where they're going. All we see is their effect. So anytime you see the wind blowing, you see the effect of the wind. But, even though there are equipments now to show the direction of the wind, you cannot say they are coming from the specific source and that they are going to a specific source. So it means that those who believe and who are in tune with the Holy Spirit are very difficult to figure out, because they are moved by the Spirit, they are instructed by the Spirit, they are motivated by the Spirit, and they act according to the prompting and the leading of the Holy Spirit. So the Lord in us is a truth of Scripture. For example, one of the things we said was the passage that was read from John, 1 John chapter 4, verse 4. I will read it again. Say, ye are of God, little children, and have overcome them, because greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. He used a personal pronoun. He means somebody. So there is somebody inside the believer that is greater than somebody that is out in the world. The one that is out in the world, who is the prince of the world, who is the prince of the power of the air, is referring to Satan. That is the power that operates in this world. And we can see it all around. That is visible. It's visible in wickedness. It's visible in callousness, in selfishness. It is visible in all kinds of evil things that are happening all over the world. It is visible in occultism, in divination, in enchantments, in spells. It is visible in everywhere you look. You can see the sign of wickedness and of evil. The person behind it, the Bible tells us, is Satan. And I want to say something here that of all the books that I've read, there is no book that explains what is happening in the world more than the Bible. It tells us who is behind it, and it tells us why we have come to the place in which we are. But thank God for the atoning sacrifice. Thank God for the redemption that comes through Jesus Christ. What the scripture is telling us is that in spite of the power and the control of Satan over this world, over the minds of men, and over the character and disposition of men, those who believe in Jesus Christ, they have superior power by virtue of the one that is resident in them. And the one that is resident in them is God. So as big as God is, he has decided to dwell in each of us. And he is able to do that because he's God. He said, I am the God of all flesh. Is anything too hard for me? So there is nothing too hard for God to do. He can be bigger than the universe, and he can, shrink himself to be inside of of an individual. And then he can be inside billions of individuals at the same time, being the same person, having the same power, the same authority, doing the same thing without any diminution of his power or for his being. This is all God. When we're talking this, that's talking of God, that this is the mystery of God. And those who truly believe and who have faith in the word of God, they are conscious of the presence of God. They see the manifestation of that presence. And I can say emphatically, by the grace of God, that I am one of them. I know that God dwells inside of me. And I know he works. And I've seen his works. I've seen what he has done. I cannot deny it.
Pastor Femi, why isn't this teaching that the kingdom of heaven is within us, Jesus' spirit resides in us? Why don't we hear it more frequently?
I cannot explain why. I believe that, if every church leader or a pastor is humble to allow the Spirit of God to guide him in what he teaches the church, I'm sure this will come out. But I always say this, and I will repeat it again, that it is not enough for us to study the scripture and pick something from the scripture and preach to the church. That's not what we should be doing. We are to study the scripture to know the scripture. But we must yield that the Holy Spirit will tell us what to tell the church. That is true teaching. That is true preaching. Because today we have someone that is in control of all churches of Jesus Christ in the world. His name is the Holy Ghost. And he's a teacher. When Jesus was living in John chapter 14 and also in John chapter 16, he told us that this is the one that will teach us all things. So nobody should usurp the role of the Holy Spirit in the church. Every pastor must hear from the Holy Spirit and then speak to the church what the Holy Spirit has told him. If you look at the book of Revelation, you see how John, the revelator, got the revelations from God. He was speaking what what he was hearing, and then he said, "Let him that are here hear what the Spirit is saying to the churches." So it is the Spirit that must be speaking to the churches through us, who are the pastors. And the way the Spirit teaches is to tell us what we're going to tell them. And I do have an example of that. There was one time in year 2001, we had a branch in Boston at the time, and I was studying the scriptures from Monday to know what I was going to teach on Sunday. But I was open to the Holy Spirit. I kept on studying, and Saturday night, I still have not received anything. I have studied during the whole week. I've read many passages, but I didn't feel that I've received anything from the Lord to share with the church. So out of desperation, I said, Lord, I've been studying since Monday and I can't find anything to tell the church. And then I had the Lord speak to me, say, but you didn't ask me.
Oh, wow, look at that.
So I repented and I said, now tell me what you want me to teach the church. And he simply told me, go to John chapter 5. And as I opened John chapter 5, the whole of John chapter 5 opened to me. I was seeing things that I never saw in that scripture before. So I got to the church on Sunday in Boston and I began to teach what I received from John chapter 5. You could see the effect on the people.
Wow.
I had to tell them that, look, this is not my power. This is not a question of anointing. This is what happened during the week. I studied up to last night. I didn't receive anything and I cried that, Lord, what do you want me to tell your people? And he told me to go to John chapter 5. It is what he showed me from John chapter 5 that I'm telling you. So don't think that this is your pastor. It's not me. It's the Holy Spirit. I had to make that confession before the church, seeing what was happening. So that is what we need to do. If we are humble, the Holy Spirit will speak to the church through us. And as the Spirit speaks, he will speak what is relevant. There are some churches that will bring out this. There are other churches that will be bringing out some other things. But the entire church over time will have the knowledge of what they need to know about the Word of God. And of course, this thing will continue to occur that way.
Well, Pastor Femi, and again, before we continue, you're listening to Pastor Femi live, and we're talking about Jesus. And do you really believe, do you know without a shadow of a doubt that he resides in you? Pastor Femi, my next question is, when people really know that his spirit, his mighty spirit is in us, the kingdom is in us, what are the possibilities of God's children then?
Now, the Spirit of God in the believer is first of all to shape the believer's personality. That is shaping his character. That's why I said the kingdom of God is within us. The kingdom of God within us is the rule of God inside us. So it is by the kingdom of God within us that the Holy Spirit can change us from inside, through the Word of God. As we receive insight of the Word of God, he conditions us to begin to live according to the word that we receive from from the scriptures. So as we're living according to that word, we're living according to the principles of the kingdom of God. So in effect, our character will be the outworking from within of the kingdom of God. So people will see the fruit of the Holy Spirit. They will see love. They will see joy. They will see peace. They will see goodness. They will see long suffering. They will see patience. They will see temperance. They will see all those things in us.
Yes.
They will realize that, the nature of these people is good, is comforting, is exhorting, is gracious, and it reveals Jesus Christ. But the other aspect of it is walking in power. A believer is not only to be walking in the fruit of the Holy Spirit, he must also be walking in power. In the book of, I believe, maybe 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 20, I can't remember the place where it is specifically. He said the kingdom of God is not in food and drink, but it is in, the power, it is in righteousness and joy of the Holy Ghost. And another scripture said that the kingdom of God is not in words, but it is in power. So it's not for us to just be speaking the word of God. We have to be seeing the power of God, because the word itself is powerful. And the only way we can see the power of the word of God is actually through faith. I've just seen that scripture put up. It's Romans chapter 14, verse 17. Romans chapter 14, verse 17. It says that the kingdom of God is not in what?
It says, for the kingdom of God is not in meat and drink.
Yes.
But righteousness and peace
And peace and joy is the Holy Spirit. Yes, there is another one that says the kingdom of God is not in words, but it's in power. So that is even more relevant to what we're talking about, because it's talking of two things about the kingdom of God. One is not food and drink. That is, it's not about personal welfare, but it is in righteousness and joy in the Holy Spirit, which is talking of the fruit of the Holy Spirit. And then the second one said the kingdom of God is not in words only, but it is in power. So we must be demonstrating the power of the kingdom, and we must be showing we're living in the principle of the kingdom. Yes, that one is 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 20, as I said before. So you see, the thing for us is this. As believers, we're expected to walk in power. All of us must walk in power. It's not the pastors alone that should walk in power. In fact, I believe that the teachings of the Word of God over the years and the manifestations that we see among the men of God, which is an amazing thing, which is a glorious thing, which is the marvelous manifestation of the power of God, has also conditioned the minds of believers to think that this thing is restricted to only a certain class of people. It's not like that. In the book of Acts, we see examples when Apostle Peter said that out of the people that are in the church, that some should be selected, 7 people should be selected, who will be looking after the welfare of the people of the church. He said they will concentrate on prayer and the word of God. And one of the people chosen in that exercise was Philip. And Philip, who was supposed to be in charge of distributing food to believers, walked in power. Yes, he walked in power, and many people were taught. The ministry was amazing. He went to a town and preached, and the whole town believed in Jesus. So it's not only the pastors that are to be walking in the power of the kingdom of God. Every child of God must be walking in that power.
Pastor Femi, can you mentioned the word power?
Yes.
Can you share with us? Can you give us a example of some of the things Christ's power, His manifestation in us, that we're capable of doing as Christians?
First of all, the power gives us grace to be able to overcome many things, essentially temptation. We have power to overcome temptation. We have power to bring healings and deliverances into the lives of people. We have power to be able to determine even things that occur in our environment. We have power to shape things. It's amazing the extent of the manifestation of the power if we understand it. The believers, I said several times in the past, and I will say it again now, you see, there is a natural way of doing things. Take, for example, if there is some kind of policies that the governments are setting up, maybe local government, maybe you're talking of a city government or a state government or the federal government. If there are policies that, they are, enacting either laws or certain things that are contrary to the way of God, and we want to address them, there are two ways that it can be done. There's the way of, which is common here, where people will gather together, they will get signatures, of the people. They will, I don't know what they call it. I think, they will collect as many signatures as possible to push back on those policies and gather those things. Petitions, yes, they will say petitions, and then they will present that to government, and then there will be changes. And sometimes the government does not listen. But there is a power that is greater than that, and that is the power of believers gathered together and fasting and praying based on the word of God, decreeing changes, and those changes will be manifested. We don't need to go and talk to any politician. We don't need to go and make any representation to any state government or any federal government. The church that is conversant with the power of God, that understands what the church is all about, is able to determine policies without getting outside the four corners of the church building.
Wow.
That is possible. With prayer and fasting, destinies of nations can be changed by the church.
Well, perfect example, Pastor Femi, is the photograph that you have behind us, the lighthouse. So can you explain why the church should be the lighthouse in the world, Pastor Femi?
Jesus Christ said we should be the lighthouse in the church. He said, in the world. He said, ye are the light of the world. And before he said that, in John chapter 9, he came across a person that was born blind. And then the apostles, the disciples said, Master, why was this man born blind? Is it because of his sin or the sin of his parents? The Lord Jesus Christ said, no, it's not. It's got nothing to do with his own sin or the sin of his parents. It is for the purpose that the glory of God may be manifested in him. Then he said, as long as I'm in the world, I am the light of the world. And he signified that by making mud, putting on the face of the man, and told him to go to the pool of Siloam and wash. The man went to the pool of Siloam and washed. And then he came back seeing, a person that was born blind. So, you see, what it does that show to us? The man was in darkness, now he could see. It is telling us about the gospel. Everyone that does not believe in the gospel, according to the word of God, is in darkness. But by bringing the gospel and the person believing, it comes to light. So we that are in the light must be shining as light. That is why he said that, a man does not light a lamp and puts it under the table. Yeah. He said he must put it on top of the table so that it can give light to every man in the world. Yes, illumination.
Yes.
So how then are we to be a vessel for illumination in the world? One, by our conduct through the fruit of the Holy Spirit. People will see us walking in love. They will see us that we care for people. They will see that we walk, in grace. They will see that we are self-disciplined and self-controlled. They will see that we are compassionate and merciful. All those things are things that they will see in us. That's one way of giving light to the world.
Yes.
They will see us doing what is right. They will see us refusing to be part of what is wrong. When a believer can be compromised to support what is wrong, when he knows that the thing is wrong, he's not being a light of the world. Because the light is to show, to shine for those who are in darkness. And one of the characteristics of light is that it will reveal what is crooked. Light will reveal what is crooked. So we cannot embrace what is crooked. We cannot be part of what is crooked. We cannot join others to do what is wrong. We must stand on the basis of the word of God. You see, because we call our should. In fact, in Proverbs, he said, my son, if sinners entice you, he said you should not go with them. So that's how to be the light of the world, to stand on the basis of truth and on the word of God. Another way of being the light of the world is to demonstrate the power of the Holy Spirit. We demonstrate the power of the Holy Spirit in healings, in casting out devils, in like I said, in shaping things. I can tell you some of the things that have happened, that I have seen, that are so amazing that it's very difficult for me to believe that, this thing is not there. It's there.
Pastor Femi, one thing comes to mind, what you told me.
Yes.
I think it was last year, you told me about any time that you was doing ministry work, you would pray about the weather.
Yes.
Can you give an example of how Jesus' Spirit in us, when we have that faith, that his Spirit can control the weather?
It's several examples. There are so many, I don't even know. For example, there was one that actually happened, not here, but in Nigeria. We went to a town in Nigeria for a burial ceremony. I did not know what I'm about to tell you now before. It was after I saw the manifestation of the power of God that people started talking to me that this is what happened. So in that town was an occultic man that hated the family that was bereaved. So the family, the person that was to be buried was an old woman. So this man vowed that there will be rain from beginning to the end for that burial, that the burial will take place inside the rain. He said that that woman will be lowered in a grave that is filled with water. So he vowed. And before we got to the town, the rain was just pouring down to the extent that by the time we got to the town, every place was, waterlogged. The whole place, was slippery because it's not paved areas like in the United States of America. So we were wondering how the burial was going to take place. But in any case, we slept overnight. The rain did not stop. We woke up in the following morning, and somebody just came to where I was with my wife and my wife's sister and said, I understand you are a man of God from Lagos. And I said, yes, please come and pray that this rain will stop. And I just got up. I didn't know anything. And I said, okay, let's go and pray. As we gathered together in that rain to pray, the Lord told me to tell them to smile, that the rain was going to stop.
Wow.
So I told them, the Lord said smile because rain is going to stop now. And everybody was looking at me. And I didn't know why they were looking at me like that. It's like, is he out of his mind? How can he be saying this? But I was smiling. I was filled with joy. And I was smiling. So I simply prayed. And I told them, the rain will stop now. Before we finished that prayer, the rain was reducing. Shortly, within 2 to 5 minutes after the prayer, the rain stopped. Then there is an amazing thing that happened. All the ground that was waterlogged, it's as if the water, as if the ground soaked in the water.
Wow.
So everything dried up. And we prayed that prayer right in front of the house of that voodoo priest.
Look at that.
And he was looking at us when we were praying. So I just thought it was an old man that was just sitting in the doorway of his house. So the burial was done. The whole day, like they do burial in Africa, in Nigeria particularly, there will be some celebration after the person is buried. So the celebration took place all night. No rain, everybody enjoyed themselves because I know woman. They celebrated his own going. And then one of the people that came to call me came to me and he said, who are you? And I was surprised that he was asking me, who are you? Where are you from? From which ministry? Then he said, you remember you prayed? I said, yes. He said, do you know you are standing in front of the house of the man that vowed that this woman was going to be buried in a water-filled grave? I said, really? He said, yes. He said, as we were praying, he was looking at us. He said, that was the man that caused the rain, that vowed that that woman will never be buried in a dry weather, that the rain will continue to pour. And
wow.
And it will only stop after the woman has been lowered into the grave that is filled with water.
Pastor Femi, now he didn't have the Holy Spirit, but how did he have power to make it rain?
Yes, he has power to make it rain. Don't forget that all of those occultic things are from the devil. The devil has power.
Okay.
You cannot, as we said in Luke chapter 10, verse 19, he said, I've given you power to tread upon serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy. Jesus Christ himself acknowledged the power of Satan. That's why he said, over all the power of the enemy. So a believer who says that the devil has no power is ignorant. But a believer that is afraid of the power of the devil is also ignorant. Because the Bible has told you, this is what I've just read in 1 John chapter 4, verse 4. It said, ye are of God, little children. Don't forget what he calls them, little children. But then he said, and you have overcome them. That is, you have overcome Satan and all his demons and all his agents, all voodoo priests and all forces of wickedness. Why? Because greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world.
Well, Pastor Femi, do those who practice the occult, do they know the true power of a true son and daughter of God? Are they familiar?
Some are, some are not. And it's really, really pathetic that those who believe are walking as if they have no power, as if they have nobody with them, as if they are on their own. You see, all agents of Satan,
Yes.
they know that their power is from Satan. They believe the power of Satan. They believe that power can do the things that they want that power to do. But the unfortunate thing is that those who believe in Jesus Christ do not believe in the same way that the power of Jesus is greater. Why would the power of Jesus Christ not be greater? He's the creator. You see, he's the creator. In John chapter 1, the Bible told us that in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He said, through him all things were made. Without him was not anything made that was made. So this word is talking of Jesus Christ. In the book of Revelation, he said his name is the Word of God. So if Jesus, this is why we need to meditate on the Word of God. If Jesus is the creator, we have said it before in many of the shows, is it possible for someone to make something that will outsmart him? Even human beings don't do that. Whatever they make it in such a way that they will have authority over it. If they make cars, they will be able to fix the cars. If they make computers, it will be impossible for the computer to operate beyond them. Even all these things they're talking of artificial intelligence is just artificial. That's it, artificial. Because there is no way the intelligence of the computer can surpass the intelligence of the one that made it.
The creator. Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
it's the same with Jesus Christ and Satan. You know, Satan is a creature. Jesus is the creator. So it is never ever going to be possible for the creature to outwit the creator. Everything Satan is doing, God gives him the leeway to do it.
Yes.
You know, it's like, okay, you think you have power, exhaust yourself. Let's see what you've got. That's like what Jesus is saying. You know, and we do that with people. Okay, let's see what you've got. You think you can oppose me? Let's see what you've got. We see that in boxing matches all the time, particularly if we remember, you know, Ali and most of the people he fought with. Sometimes he would just put his arm to the side and begin to take punches from the other person,
Yes.
as if he can't do anything. And then all of a sudden he waves his hand like that and one blow and the guy is gone. So,
Yeah.
so it's like saying,
Yes.
okay, let's see what you've got.
Yes.
So that is the thing. What we need to do is to sit down and think with the Word of God. You know, when you hear creator, he's creator of all. So that is the one that is in us. It is not possible if we believe his word and we act in faith for us to be overcome by the devil. He said we have overcome them
Wow.
because greater is in us than who is in the world. And then in 1 John chapter 5, he said, what is it that overcomes the world? That is, what is it that overcomes Satan and all his schemes and all his machinations? He said, you know, even our faith. So the faith we have is very, very important to what happens. If we don't act in faith, we will just be weak before the devil.
Wow.
But if we act in faith, God will back us up.
May I open up the phone lines, Pastor
Yes,
Femi?
please.
Yep. If you're interested in calling Pastor Femi here at Pastor Femi Live, you can call us at 888-404-4431. That's 888-404-4431. You know what's interesting, Pastor Femi? They say that a zoo elephant, or one that, you know, belongs to a circus or who's in a zoo,
Yes.
can be chained to a chain maybe 2 feet long with a stake, and he'll stay there. But Pastor Femi, they say he could, if he wanted, just pull up his feet, but they broke his spirit down so much he doesn't realize the strength he has.
Probably that's what believers are like.
It's same example, right, Pastor Femi?
Yes, yes. You see, one of the things we have to know is this: as we open up ourselves, not to believe in ourselves, but to believe in Jesus Christ, we will see things that we do not expect. Look at this scripture we read in 1 John chapter 4, verse 4. Do you know I have caused a lady to use this scripture for deliverance one day? We came to church that day, and she had pain in her leg, and she was weeping. And she was at the back of the church, and people, because they saw the agony, they came to me and said, Pastor, Sister so and so is weeping because of the problem she has. Okay.
Take this call. Welcome, caller.
Hello.
Hello. Can you hear us tonight, caller?
Yes, I can hear you very clearly.
Yep. Do you have a question for Pastor Femi?
Actually, I have more of a confirmation on what he's saying, because I've listened to what he's saying, and it is just great. And what comes to me is what Paul said in the Epistle to the Galatians 2:20, when people talking about Christ living within, and Paul said it this way: I am crucified with Christ, and it is no longer I who live, but it is Christ who lives in me.
Wow. Hey, caller, could you turn down your volume on your
Knowing
speaker?
that is such a comfort to know. And we know that the Godhead is God the Father, Jesus the Son, and the Holy Spirit. They are one. Like they use the analogy of an egg. An egg is made up of three parts: yolk, white, and shell. The Godhead. So when you accept Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior, and the Holy Spirit comes and dwells within, it's Jesus Christ.
Yeah, caller, could you shut down your speaker? We're hearing your speaker in the background.
So
Yeah, go ahead, Pastor Femi.
now, the effect, the what we're talking about is the believer understanding what has happened and how he can appropriate what has happened. One of the things that is common in the church is you see majority of people in the church, they know the scriptures. I mean, they know the scriptures.
Yes.
But we're talking of practical appropriation of the scripture, putting the scripture to work.
Yes.
And that's what I want to illustrate in this 1 John chapter 4, verse 4. Okay. Now, what the speaker is talking about is real. Jesus is in us. Okay, what should be the effect of that in our lives? In our work, in our character, in our disposition, in the way we conduct ourselves, and in the way we move in the power of God. This Paul that he spoke about operated in the power of God. In the book of Acts, he was teaching, and somebody fell from the window upstairs and died. And Paul went down, lied on the person, and he revived and raised him from dead. He was teaching in another place, and there was somebody that was lame there looking at him, and he saw that the man's attention was riveted on him, and he spoke, "Rise up on your feet." And the man rose up and walked. So when he says that I'm crucified with Christ, and Christ lives in him, he demonstrated it. That's what we're talking about. That we should be able to demonstrate that. It should be practical. That should be practical demonstration. So what I did that day when this lady came with this pain and agony was I told the people to bring her in front of the church so that the whole church can see. And then there she was weeping and crying. And I read the scripture. I said, "Do you believe this scripture?" She said, "Yes, I do." And I asked her pointedly, "Who is in you?" Because the scripture says, "Greater is he that is in you than the one that is in the world." I said, "Who is in you?" She said, "Jesus Christ." I said, "Who is in the world?" She said, "Satan." Then I said, "Now command Satan to remove his hand from your leg." So she did it. "Satan, remove your hand from my leg." But she didn't say it convincingly.
With boldness.
She didn't say it boldly.
Yes.
So I said to her, "Look, I'm not going to pray for you. Do you want this pain in your leg?" She said, "No." Now, if you don't want the pain, since the one that is in you is greater than Satan that is in the world, now command Satan convincingly, boldly, to remove his hand from your leg. and you'll be healed. And she screamed, Satan, remove your hand from my leg in the name of Jesus. And that was it.
Wow.
The pain left.
Wow.
This is what we're talking about. Demonstrating the scripture.
Wow.
Yes, we must demonstrate the scripture.
Well, I want to thank the caller there for
Amen.
calling into Pastor Femi
Yes.
Live. And Gideon, what do you think about this topic? Jesus in us and the wisdom that Pastor Femi is sharing with us. At your age group, do you know in your spirit, being a Christian, that Jesus, the power of Christ himself, lives and resides in you?
Yeah, I 100% believe that the power of Christ resides in me. I mean, a lot of things I wouldn't be able to do if it wasn't for Jesus. And I also wanted to make a comment on what Pastor was talking about the rain. I remember a couple years ago during our cookout that I brought a friend over, and I remember that day so clearly because he wasn't a believer, and we were just talking because the forecast called for rain, and it was like a high percent chance of rain. And then we were just talking about it, and he was like, "Oh, it's gonna rain today. Why is your church doing the podcast?" And I was like, "It's not gonna rain." And then he was just like, "Yes, it was." And I don't know if Pastor can remember because he was really tall. And he came, and then I was like, "Oh, this is my pastor. Pastor's my friend." And then he was like, "Oh, I don't know how the conversation got to the rain, but he said it was gonna rain." And Pastor just said, "It's not gonna rain." And he was like, "Oh, it's gonna rain." And Pastor's like, "It's not gonna rain." And he was just like, "Okay." And then Pastor just walked away. He didn't even pray. He just said, "It's not going to rain." And then when Pastor left, my friend was like, "Oh, I don't know what he's talking about. It's going to rain." I was like, "It's not going to rain." And then the day went on, and it was so hot that whole day. Like, he actually had to take off his shirt because he had like a flannel and then a T-shirt under. And it was so hot that he had to take off his sweatshirt, like his flannel, so like he could be cool because it didn't rain. It just got hot that day, and there was no rain. So yeah, yes, I do know the power of God is in me, and the topic actually brought something back into my memory that we were talking about. So yeah.
You know why I believe this is a great topic to discuss? It reinforces the things we should know. It really solidifies in our spirit that, yes, I am not powerless.
Yes. No believer is powerless. Every believer should know that the power of God is resident in him. The power of God is resident in her. All you need to do is to believe and take steps of faith. The Bible says in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6, it said, without faith it is impossible for anyone to please God. Okay? Said because those who come to God must believe that he is and is the rewarder of them that diligently seek him. So if you believe that there is God, if you believe in Jesus Christ, it is only when you take steps on the basis of the principles of the scripture that you will see that is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. Okay. Now Jesus Christ himself, in Luke chapter 4, he made a declaration. He said, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach good tidings to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted." He said, to preach recovery of sight to the blind, and to set at liberty them that are bruised. So when you look at that, it's telling you that through the Spirit of God there is power for miracles. Okay, this is the same Spirit that is resident in us. Jesus told us in that Luke chapter 4 verse 18 that, look, all I'm going to do is because of the power of the Holy Spirit that is upon me. So we cannot underestimate the power of the Holy Spirit. And our own faith is to recognize him and to recognize the authority of his name and to recognize his own authority. In Matthew chapter 8, some people, there was a centurion a soldier, and he sent to Jesus Christ and said, "Look, my servant is here. Please, he needs healing." Jesus Christ volunteered. He said, "I will come and heal him." The man sent word back, "No, I'm not worried that you should come into my house. You just speak the word." Yes, speak the word. He said, "Because I'm a man under authority. I have soldiers under me. I say to this one to go, he will go. I say to that one to come, he will come. I say to that one, do this, and he will do it." Jesus said, "Wow, I've never seen such a great faith in Israel. What is he saying? Our faith, the quality of our faith rests on who we think Jesus is and what authority he has. If you, by faith, we recognize that Jesus has authority over all, as the scripture says, that he says, all authority in heaven and on earth, they have been given to me. If we believe that, if we believe that he has been given a name that is above every other name, and that at the name of Jesus, every knee should bow, of those things in heaven, of those things on earth, and of those things under the earth, and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. If we believe that all things were made by him, whether they are visible or invisible, whether they are principalities or powers or might or dominion, that all things were made by him and for him. If we believe all those, and we believe what he told us, that, in my name you will cast out devils, in my name you will heal, in my name you bring deliverance, then we have no business feeling helpless and hopeless in the face of situations. Most people, the first thing they do is to run to others. They don't run to Jesus Christ. They first of all run to somebody. Something is happening. The first thing is, I'm going to go to this, I'm going to go. They're looking for worldly experts, and they are leaving their faith unused. When we use our faith, it's just like muscle. We develop faith.
Yes.
The manifestations that we see boost our faith.
Yes.
I'm talking the way I'm talking because I have seen so much that you can't tell me otherwise. I cannot believe it because of what I've seen.
Pastor Femi, can you remember as recent as now, a manifestation of Christ that in the physical it couldn't be understood?
There are several, that, cannot be, understood. Like, we speaking, like, what Gideon just said. There was one day, we had a car, and then as I was driving with somebody by my side, it was like, I think the car was malfunctioning. And this person made a remark. I can't remember the remark that he made. And I said, well, God will just have to give us another car then. It's not prayer. I just said it. A few weeks later, we had a car. And I'd forgotten what I said.
Wow.
It was when I was talking. He said, Pastor, don't you remember, that day that I was talking? You said God will just have to give us another car then. That's the car.
You just spoke it.
I just spoke it. You see, I just spoke it. It wasn't that I gathered resources together. I didn't ask for a loan. I didn't ask for anything. I didn't go look for anything. And the car came.
Wow.
So that is that. Look at, so I told you, God said, irrigate this land with water.
Yes.
We said, well, if we want to irrigate, you give us channel of irrigation.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Look.
Yes.
I didn't even know there is what to call 590 AM.
Yes.
It came. And then as we continue using that, we were both witnesses without solicitation. Greenville, South Carolina called us to come and be speaking. So these are the manifestations that we see. I told you about the car that I'm riding. I didn't buy it. God showed it. And I was even thinking in my mind that, okay, so I'm going to save up for it. Because no matter how much we walk in faith, we still walk in the natural, many times. Yes. So I was thinking when I saw that car in the vision, I said, okay, I'm going to save up for it and buy it. Not knowing that God was ready to give me the car right there. And then he gave it to me free. So you see, these are things that we walk in by the grace of God. When we believe, particularly when we as children of God, and we are in the things of God, we must believe for miracle signs and wonders. We went to Maryland in July. And then we're coming back. This is an amazing testimony. In the morning that we were coming back, I decided to drive to my friend's office. He has a business in Lorette. So I decided to drive to Lorette to tell him, look, we're on our way. So he said, okay, before you go, let's go to Dunkin' Donuts. You guys should get something before you go. So I said, okay, let's go. We got to the place. We got some things. And then I wanted to go. He said, no, you can't go. Told my wife to sit down Then my wife's cousin was with us, told her to sit down. So they were sitting down, and I was ready to go. He said, Pastor, you can't go. Your wife is sitting down. The cousin of your wife is sitting down. So you two sit down. I mean, relax. I said, look, we have a long journey to go, because I was driving. We have to go. So he said, sit down. Then right there, he called somebody on the phone and said, Pastor is here. How long is it going to get you to get here? 5 minutes? The man said, I will be there in 2 minutes. And rushed to the place. And immediately the guy came in. My friend just simply said, Pastor, pray for this man. And got up and left. So I didn't ask what was the situation with the man. I simply prayed. And I left. The man called that from the moment we prayed, what was wrong with her, with him, vanished from that very moment. Then he now explained what was happening to me. He said he was afflicted and that he couldn't eat and he couldn't drink. That in the night, in the day, he will feel fine. But in the night, his temperature will shoot up and will remain high throughout the night. So he said he was emaciating. His pants were falling off from his waist. And everybody was concerned. He lost so much pounds. Then he now told me that since we prayed, he called me within 4 or 5 weeks. He said he said at that time that he was afflicted, he couldn't eat at all. And that he had called his wife and told his wife that, well, this thing that is happening, there is no solution. He said he's 49 years old, that the test he has done in that period, he has never done any such thing in his life. This guy is a scientist, so he knows what he's talking about. So he now said that he told his wife that this thing that is happening, nobody could find what is wrong. He knows that he's been afflicted. So the way it's going, he is likely to die. So if that happens, and Brad started telling his wife, what she should do. So he said immediately after that prayer, everything stopped. He started eating. He started gaining weight. And he told me, he said, sir, you don't know what happened to me. God used you to deliver me that day. I'm glad that I met you. What was that? Was I the one that did it? No. But I believed in the power that is in the name of Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. I believe that Jesus can do it. Because, all we need to believe is that he can do it. In Mark chapter 9, I think verse 28, he went, some blind people came and spoke to him. And what he asked them is, do you believe that I can do this? Mm-hmm. And they said, yes. So that is our faith, that Jesus can do it. That should be our faith from now on. In Romans chapter 4, yes. Abraham said when he got the promise of God that he will have a child, he said he did not, consider his body that was now dead. He did not consider the deadness of Sarah's womb. So he didn't look at the natural. But he said he was steadfast in faith, giving glory to God, because he believed that the one that has promised is also able, yes, to fulfill the promise. Yes, so yes. Our faith is to believe that Jesus is able to do all these things, and then to consult him. If we come like that, we will see results.
You know why now, Pastor Femi, and again, you have about 5 minutes left, why this is so important. So when people are asked, how much faith do you have? If they change their focus on Jesus in them, and if they really know that Jesus in them, their whole mindset, how they perceive what true faith is, will change.
It will change. Because he has promised that he will not deny us what we ask him. Okay? He said, ask, you shall receive. Seek, you shall find. He said, knock, and it shall be opened unto you. Then in the next verse, he said, for those who ask, they receive. That's powerful. Those who ask, they receive. Those who seek, they find. Those who knock, the door is open unto them. So if you can see that the same thing is happening to people, why can't you do the same thing?
Pastor Femi, I have a question. Do you believe and know that if a person had enough faith, like Peter did for that moment, that they could walk on water?
They could. You see, what happened was Peter was afraid.
Yes.
And then he began to sink.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Jesus Christ said, why were you afraid?
Yeah.
You see the point? So what was it that kept Peter afloat? Was his faith in Jesus Christ. And the faith also in the word that Jesus spoke to him. For example, if I go on the lakeside and I say, yes, I can walk on water and begin to go, I'm likely to drown. Because that's tempting God.
Oh,
Yes,
that's good
That's
to know.
tempting God. Jesus said, come. So he was acting on the word that Jesus spoke to him.
So it was a invitation.
It was an invitation, and the power of the word of Jesus will hold that water underneath the soul of Peter.
Okay,
Because
okay.
it's the same that he has said to us. For example, all of us who believe, he said, as the Father has sent me, so send I you. That is in John chapter 20, verse 21. So how did the Father send him? He sent him, of course, to do all these things we're talking about. So if he said he sent us in the same manner,
Yes.
why is it that then we think we cannot do it?
Yes.
All we need to believe, he said, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of your faith. You see, I'm talking to you, please, as a child of God. I know you believe in Jesus, but there are so many things you're missing until you believe in the power of Jesus and the authority of Jesus Christ to do things. He will do things that you do not imagine. I've seen so many, many miracles. My own daughter was 6 years old when she was paralyzed. And through prayer, this girl today is the secretary of this church and is walking and jumping all over the place. Yes.
Take it, Pastor Femi.
Yes.
Hello, caller.
Oh,
Go ahead, caller.
I have a question for Pastor Femi.
Yes, sir.
And it is concerning what you're talking about, and when you exercise your faith and knowing which voice you hear. Could you explain when it's us, our fleshly voice, or Satan's voice, or the Holy Spirit?
Thank you
That
so much.
discernment and that wisdom.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, caller. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, there are so many parameters or factors with which we can judge you speaking to us. In John chapter 10, the Lord Jesus Christ said that, I know my sheep and they hear my voice. So he's affirming that, yes, we can recognize his voice. He said the voice of a stranger they will not hear. So it differentiates the fact that his sheep will hear his voice. Now, when the believer hears a voice, how does he know that the voice he's hearing is the voice of Jesus and not the voice of his own flesh or the voice of Satan? Number one, the voice of Jesus will never speak anything contrary to Scripture. That is why it's
good
important for every
Good
believer to know the Scripture. So we must go from, first of all, the written word. We must be conversant with the written word. Like I was saying before, that okay, to walk on water, if I go to the place and I say, yes, Peter walked on water and I'm going to walk on water, then I will drown, because that's tempting God. Jesus invited Peter. But if Jesus told me, go there and walk on water, yes. You see, so this is the thing. So the first thing is that it will be consistent with the word of God. That's number one. Number two, the Bible says that he will speak peace. Whatever word the Lord will bring to you will come with peace.
Yes.
It will come with profound peace. It's a different kind of peace. Yes. You will have peace within you that this is, the Lord speaking to you. Now, if you hear from him, the Bible says that our spirit bears witness with his spirit that we're the children of God. When you hear from the Lord directly, your spirit must bear witness that is the Lord speaking to me. Because it's not possible for the word of God to come to you and for you not to recognize it. He said, if you look at one of the Psalms, said the voice of the Lord is powerful. The voice of the Lord, is over the waters. He breaks the cedars of Lebanon. So the voice of God and the word of God cannot be confused with any other. Yes. Okay. So in the case of Satan, most of the time, please take note of this. Most of the time, it's a secondary voice. God will have spoken to you before Satan speaks to you. The principle is in the book of Genesis. God told the man, "You must not eat of the fruit of the of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, but of all other fruits." Then Satan came. It was not Satan that spoke to man first. So Satan does not have authority to speak to a believer first. So when you hear the word of God, Satan often comes to contradict it. It has happened to me. I've given that testimony before. I was praying. I wanted to go into prayer and fasting for 3 days. The Lord told me, "You've prayed and fast for 3 days, but you will come out of the prayer room the morning of the 4th day." And I said, yes. I went to the prayer. On the 3rd day, I broke my fast. I ate nothing in those 3 days. I didn't drink anything in those 3 days. But at the end of the fast, I decided to break my fast. Immediately I broke my fast. Then I heard a voice, "You can go out now." That's different from what I had from the beginning. But I made a mistake. I said, "No, God said I should go on out to the morning on the 4th. He said, "No, you have finished your fast. You can go out." And I made the mistake to say, "Okay, give me a scripture." That's why anytime a believer dialogues with the devil, he will lose. Because he will always outsmart us. That's why the only thing we need to do is just to believe in Jesus and follow the voice of Jesus without listening to him. He's a deceiver, and he will outsmart us. So when I said, "Okay, what's the scripture?" He gave me a scripture. I look at the scripture confirmed, because Satan knows the scripture. So the scripture confirmed that I could go out. So I went out, only to find out from one of our neighbors that God has sent, that my servant is praying. Go and tell him that he should come out in the morning of the 4th day. So he came and found that I was praying and said, "Oh, I don't need to tell him. He knows already," and walked away. So that is that. So Satan will always speak second. Number 2, he will speak what is contradictory to the word of God. Number 3, he will speak what will edify the flesh.
Yes.
In the way of selfishness, in the way of, he will speak that. We want you to seek your own interest. That is not how God speaks. God will tell you what you are going to, and most of the time, when God speaks to us, if we apply our mental understanding to it, what he speaks will appear not to make sense. It will appear not to make sense. I mean, he said, "Go to the United States and start a church." I was not a theologian. I'd never pastored a church before. So where is the best place to start a church? Is it not in Nigeria, where I know people that I can run to if I don't know what to do? I can ask them. But he said, "Go to the United States." But by faith, I came. And I know I didn't know what to do. So I had to depend on him. And he has been guiding us. Yes. So that is the thing. So the voice of the flesh is always, egotistical. It's going to, the flesh will always advance your own personal interest. For example, it will tell you, "Oh, you can't give all that. You need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do that." Or you say, "Okay, I'm going to give." You say, No, why should you give? You have given last week. You never know what is going to come up. I mean, supposing some other. So that is the voice of the flesh. It is self-centered.
Yes.
The flesh is always self-centered. It always looks after its own. So these are the ways we can recognize the voice. And then all of these voices, they can come by vision. They can come by dreams. All of them. Satan can speak to you in dreams. The flesh can speak to you in dreams, because the Bible says that in the multitude of our activities, we will have dreams. So, and God speaks to us with dreams and visions. So, you see, so we have to realize that the method is not the issue, is to know specifically what we are hearing. Again, from God, it will be consistent with Scripture. That is, it will advance the purpose of God. Number 2, it will bring peace. And then, I can't remember the third one that I said, but I believe that maybe the believer will
Satan
Remember.
could speak
And
second.
yes, it will
Yeah.
speak first. God will speak first. Satan will speak second. Yeah. So I don't know if that helps.
Yeah. Well, Pastor Femi, again, we really thank you. Uh, this really was a very informative hour or so. But to leave off, and I want to surrender the end of the program to you, Pastor Femi, but I just have a question for the listeners and viewers. And tonight, before you go to sleep, and even during, ask yourself, do you really believe in knowing your spirit that Jesus Christ resides in you? So, Pastor Femi, we got about 30 seconds.
I want to assure everyone that is listening that God is our Father if you believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. Because He's your Father, He has made available to you so many things that are to enhance your life and to make you to walk in victory. And all these things, many of them, if you put it together, they are resident in the Spirit of God. And that Spirit dwells in you. Go and look at 1 Corinthians chapter 6, 19 and 20, and 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 16, and also 1 John chapter 4, verse 4. So if you look at those three scriptures, it confirms to you that God is in you. So you can meditate on that for a number of days. Just God is in me, God is in me. Repeat it to yourself and think as you are repeating it to yourself so that you may be conscious of the fact that yes, the presence of God is in you. And having understood that God is in you, then you can talk to Him. Like the listener that asked the question about differentiating the voice of God or the voice of the flesh and the holy or the devil, you can keep on praying, Lord, let me be able to recognize your voice. Speak to me clearly in the name of Jesus Christ. I want to hear your voice. I want to follow your will. Show me your will. And, we can pray like that. But as I said, don't rely on praying for the voice of God if you are not in the Word of God. In fact, it is dangerous. It is dangerous because if you are not in the Word of God and you don't know the principles of God, then you are susceptible to deception. That is why the first thing to do if you really want God to speak to you is to be in the Word. Study the Word of God. Read the Word. Meditate on the Word. Think on the Word. Get a good Bible. Get a concordance, and search the Scriptures. The Bible says in 2 Timothy, I believe, chapter 2, verse 15. Again, I'm not so versatile in the pinpointing the places where the scriptures are, and that is because of the way I've conducted myself over the years. Because the chapters and verses are the inventions of men. So in my mind I just concentrate on the word. It says, "Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that need not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth." So you study. Study the word, and then the Lord will be guiding you. Number 2, believe in the authority of Jesus Christ. That Jesus has authority, Jesus has power. Believe that Jesus is able to handle any matter that you may confront. And simply on the basis of that belief in His power to handle it, bring it before Him. That is how you see manifestations. If there is sickness, disease, if there is a need, just believe that Jesus will handle it and then bring it before Him in faith. That's your faith. What's your faith? Faith that Jesus will handle it. He's able to do this. He said, if you can believe, all things are possible for him that believes. So you go to Him and say, Lord, this is the situation. I need this, and that, and believe and be in expectation. You will see your prayers being answered. You should not walk as a weakling. You are not weak. You should not walk as an underdog. You are not an underdog. The Bible says that you have overcome the one that is in the world. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. You can meditate on the scriptures. The Bible says to us in the book of Romans chapter 8, go and read it. Say God has not given us the spirit of fear, but the spirit that cries, Abba, Father. Also, go and read 2 Timothy, I think chapter 1, maybe verse 6 there. It says that God has not given us the spirit of fear, but the spirit of power, of love, and of a sound mind. So that's it. Meditate on those scriptures, and anywhere you see, you hear the word, you see the word, do not fear. Meditate on that. Meditate on that, so that you can use that to get rid of fear. And lift up your head, child of God. God is with you. And walk with your head lifted up. He has not abandoned you. He's right here, there with you. He's with you. Say, I'm with you always, even to the very end of the age. Let your mind be filled with those scriptures. Let your heart receive them and believe them. And walk conscious that you are not alone, that God is with you. Christ is inside of you. And then you know that there is no obstacle that you cannot overcome because of the power of the one that is in you. So this is how to walk in victory. You will walk in victory over sickness, over disease, over poverty, over harassments and afflictions, whatever they may be of the devil. The devil is under the sole of your feet. Jesus has won for you. He has given you the victory. In 1 John chapter 3, I think verse 8 there, he said, the reason the Son of God came is to destroy the work of the devil. His work is already destroyed. He can only deceive, and don't listen to him, because Jesus Christ said he's a liar and is the father of lies. So don't listen to him. Whatever comes to your mind that is contrary to the word of God, say no to it. No, that cannot be. Why? It is not the word of God. So that's how you live your life, and the Lord will be glorified in your life. I see you walking in victory. I see your joy enlarged. I see you rejoicing, and I see your defeat vanish, and I see you celebrating the goodness of God in the land of the living. Thank you for listening to this. That's the way you walk, and you too will have testimonies of the wonderful power of God. Blessed be the name of the Lord.
Thank you, Pastor Femi.
Thank
we
you,
thank
sir.
the listeners and viewers. Thank you, Gideon, for your services, and God bless.
I also want to thank Rebecca at One Source
yes.
Network for the marvelous work that she's doing. And the Lord will continue to enlarge you guys. We are all workers together with Him. And as He uses us, He will continue to bless us. And that we know. Glory be to His name.
Well, thank you, Pastor Femi.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Èmi mọ ohun ojú mi ti rí, mo mọ ohun etí mi ti gbọ́, mo mọ ohun ojú mi ti rí, mo mọ ohun etí mi ti gbọ́. Lọ́gán tó gbọ́ ìró ayọ̀ rẹ o olùgbàlà, ayé mi létò. Lọ́gán tó gbọ́ ìró ayọ̀ rẹ o olùgbàlà, ayé mi létò. Mo mọ ohun ayé má ti wí, mo mọ ohun èèyàn má ti sọ. Wọ́n ti pè wá ní aganrí, bóyá wọ́n ti pè ọ́ lólóṣìírí. Ṣùgbọ́n lọ́gán tó dé o olùgbàlà, láyé mi létò. Ṣùgbọ́n lọ́gán tó dé yìí o olùgbàlà, ayé ẹ létò. Ayé tó ti dàrú tẹ́lẹ̀tẹ́lẹ̀ o, lọ́gán tí ó dé. Ọ̀rọ̀ tẹ́nìyàn ti fi ṣàlùfàní rẹ̀, lọ́gán tí ó dé. Ọ̀rọ̀ tí kò dára tí a ti sọ sí ọ, lọ́gán tí ó dé. orúkọ tí kì í ṣe tìyàtà ti pè ọ́ lọ́gán tí ó